good evening or good afternoon, or maybe even good morning, depending when you are watching this recording. Today is week 3. I hope you've got some immense value out of the first 2 weeks of the program. Gel's been giving you some amazing distinctions about different things that really drive behavior in our lives, regardless if it's for our children or for ourselves. Behavior matters. And I mentioned this on the welcome webinar. It's about what creates behavior. A big part of that is our emotions, our stories, and then the choices that we make. That's the behavior. So if we feel a certain way and we tell ourselves a certain story, quite often our behaviors follow. And every single day we're making choices towards the parents we want to be, or we're making choices away from the parents we want to be. We're making choices towards the people we want to be in our career, or we're making choices away from the people we want to be in our career, in our relationships, in our friendship circles, in our health. Everything we do comes down to our choices. And success in life, and depending what success looks like to you, and it's different to every single person on the planet, of course, but success in our life comes down to the moments of our decision, which are the results that we will receive tomorrow. Quite often are the things that we make choices around today. And lots of people put things off. And this is week 3 of the program. And I'm here to talk about a bunch of different things, but more about identifying how we meet expectations in ourselves. So internal expectations and external expectations. So if you think about this from yourself, how do you meet your internal expectations of a parent, as a parent? Or how do you meet your external pressures and expectations as a parent? How do we understand how our kids are meeting their internal expectations as young people? And how are they meeting their external expectations? So they are very different. And expectations, regardless if you think they're good or bad, they do drive lots of our behavior. The way we're expected to show up in life, at school, in our sporting groups, in our friendship circles. The expectations that we try to uphold can be very challenging. And quite often at times we start living our lives through other people's expectations as parents, as people. And if you think about how very difficult it is being a young person in today's society, then you think about the expectations they're trying to meet through external pressure, their parents, their teachers, the system of education. There's a lot of expectations that they're trying to meet, but also how they meet their internal drivers. So taking you through what we call the 4 tendencies of people, which is between areas of our life, we kind of meet 1 to 2 of these areas. And at times we meet different tendencies, but we normally sit in 1. And depending on what one you sit in, depending on how you act and how you behave and how you see the world, because we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are ultimately. So when we look at something, the environment comes down to how we internalize it, how we create meaning, how we associate to it. And again, the stories that we tell ourselves. Because we could be in the same situation right now, or your kids could be in the exact same situation right now. They're both getting bullied at school, and one child is dealing with it much better, and the other one is struggling and coming home really distressed and really anxious and doesn't want to go to school, while the other one is just kind of water off a duck's back and keeps moving through the process. And that's lots of different people, lots of different environments. But what drives us is very, very different. Remember this, awareness precedes change. I repeat it, awareness precedes change. So if you're not aware of the challenges, or you're not aware of what drives our tendencies, it's really hard to find out how we can meet them or make them better. So today's webinar is really about, what are your tendencies? Where do you sit as a parent, as a person? And maybe if you go all the way back to when you were a child or a young teenager growing up, I wonder what category or what tendency you fit in back then. If you think about your kids right now, I wonder where your children are sitting, what tendency they're sitting in. And you'll see this in a second, because you can have 2 kids and they may be completely different. 3 kids, completely different. And you'll start to see this in a second, because for me personally, I dropped out of school when I was 13 years old. And I was always in trouble. I was always a bit of a class clown. I didn't want to be told what to do. I didn't like people telling me what to do. I like to be free and make my own choices. And, you can't tell me how to live my life. That was really how I was as a young boy and young man growing up. It was like I felt when people tried to make my choices for me, they were taking away my freedom. And when you told me not to do something, I'd do it anyway. So that's going against what people tell me and how they tell me to do it. It's like, you don't tell me how to live my life. I'm an adult kind of thing. And you see it with your own kids. And what we put them into is 4 categories. And these are the categories. So if you think about what I just told you just then about how I was living and how I was behaving, I was a rebel. And one of these 4 tendencies your children will fall into. And you also fall into one as well. And you can be completely different to your children. And you imagine if, a rebel going against a rebel, and, a parent's telling a child what to do, or a child's, telling a parent not to tell them what to do. You can see the clashes around personality that may have come around if you have 2 people arguing about being rebels. So tendency for me growing up was this. So resist outer expectations. So I didn't like other people putting expectations on me about getting A's or B's or C's or D's or telling me how I should perform. I also resisted internal expectation because I thought that expectations were shackles, or they would resist and restrict my freedom. So I was big on freedom. Don't tell me how to live my life. So I'll read it to you. I do what I want in my own way. If you tell me to do something, I'm less likely to do it. That's a rebel. So I wonder how many children you have right now that are rebels, that when you tell them to do something, they're less likely to do it. They push the barriers, they test you, they challenge you. They quite often, that great saying is, they beg for forgiveness rather than asking for permission. So once they've done something, they may say sorry, or this is what I've done, but quite often they hate being told what to do. So that's a rebel. The next one is a questioner. So they resist outer expectations. They meet internal or inner expectations. And the caption would be, I do what I want. I do what I think is best according to my judgment. If it doesn't make sense, I won't do it. So a question is always wondering why. You think about if you have a child right now, it's always asking you questions, but why, mum? Why, dad? Why is it like this? Why has it always been that way? But why do we have to do it this way? They want to know the information. They want to have all the data before they make a choice. And when they feel comfortable with the information that you've given them or have given them, they will make the choice and they'll make the behavior. But if they're unsure, they are less likely to do it because they're worried about how they meet their internal expectations and their outer expectations because they're a questioner. But quite often, a questioner will meet their internal expectations and quite often resist external expectations. The next one is an upholder. An upholder is meets outer expectations, meets inner expectations. I do what others expect of me and what I expect of myself. So they're quite good at meeting external expectations from other people, parents, friends, teachers, environments that they're in. They're quite good at meeting their expectations, but they're also really good at meeting their own internal ones, which are the things that they said they would do, how they were going to show up. And they're very, very good at meeting their own internal drivers. An obliger meets outer expectations, resists internal. I do what I have to do, but I often let myself down. So the obliger quite often is nearly sometimes a people pleaser. So doing what mum and dad want them to do or teachers want them to do, maybe a teacher's pet, and quite often they're well liked and they fit in, but on the inside, they quite often let themselves down. They don't actually meet their own needs, their own expectations. Are they happy within themselves? Do they feel good about themselves? Or are they just making decisions to meet the expectations of others? So they are what we call the 4 tendencies. And I wonder right now, when you're looking at it, where does your child or children sit? Because if you can see this, you can work out how to manage the process of internal and external expectations better. Because regardless if you like them or not, we have expectations. And when we're not meeting our internal ones, we get disappointed. When we're not meeting our external ones, we get disappointed. And then we can have behavioral challenges. We can have a disconnect between our parenting and our kids receiving the information that you are trying to guide them with. Because parents play such a pivotal role in navigating and educating our children. But what's important is how are they receiving it? There is a great saying that says, communication is only as effective as the response it elicits. I'll repeat it. Communication is only as effective as the response it elicits. So how your children are receiving your information is so much more important than what you're actually saying. So how you say it. But remember, if you're asking a rebel to do something, are you asking them or telling them? If you're asking a questioner, are you telling them why they need to do it? If you're asking an upholder, are you just saying that this is why you're doing it for me, but this is what's also going to do for you? And an obliger, someone that doesn't want to let someone else down. So quite often they will meet external expectations. So the next slide will be this. Some more information how you go down a little further. So a rebel. This is how to really navigate your way through the process. So if you are dealing with a rebel, a child, or son or daughter, these are some things that help you. So do provide information to allow them to choose. So allow them options, which is if you do this, and this will be the outcome. If you do that, this will be the outcome. If you do this, this will be the outcome. So if you clean your room, this will be the outcome. If you don't clean your room, this will be the outcome, and let them choose which one they want. So it might be, if you clean your room, you get to stay up and have ice cream tonight. That's the outcome. If you don't clean your room, you won't be getting any ice cream tonight. You'll be going to bed early. Then they'll choose because they feel that they've got the freedom to pick which one they want to do. So it's clever, and it's changing the landscape in the conversation to ultimately influence the outcome that you're looking for as a parent by giving them the choice to make a decision. So do provide information that allows them to choose. Do not force strict deadlines. If it's not done by 5 p.m., then you're going to bed. Then they'll start to rebel. The next one is questioner. Do provide opportunities for clarity. So clarity is powerful to a questioner. They want all the information. So give them all the information they need. They need clarity to make the decision. Do not dismiss the need for justification. So do you know how parents are like, it doesn't matter why, just do it. Or I don't need to explain to you, I just need you to do it. Like, so parents dismiss the justification of information rather than actually saying, okay, this is why you need to do it. This is why it's really important. So it's really important for parents to know when you're dealing with a questioner, they need clarity and they will seek justification. An upholder. Do make rules clear. So what is the parameters? What's the scope? What's the strategy? What's the deadlines? What do they need to understand the landscape that you're asking them, or vice versa? Do not abruptly change schedules or expectations. So they like a plan. They like a schedule. They like to know what role they're playing in that schedule. So they like to know the step-by-step process. And if you take a part out of the process, they get overwhelmed because they have uncertainty. So an upholder needs clear rules about their parameters. Think parameters, like what are the parameters that they're allowed to live in? And then do not make abrupt changes to that schedule or their expectations because they can get overwhelmed very quickly. An obliger. Do provide face-to-face interaction and praise. Do provide it. So interaction, when you're talking to them, making sure that you're positively reinforcing what you're asking. Justifying, validating, and giving them that feeling of feeling out what they're doing matters. So face-to-face interaction and praise. Do not incentivize with self-benefits. So they're not driven by internal benefit. So you can't motivate an obliger because they're not internally motivated. So I want to go to the gym because I want to look after my health. They're not motivated that way. They don't need an internal reason to be motivated to do something because they are better at meeting external expectations. So you're better off using something external, like that will make your mum really, really, really happy if you went and made her a cup of tea. Or that'll make your mum really, really happy if you cleaned your room. They are very good at meeting external expectations. But internal, so it's like you would feel so much better when you go to bed tonight if you cleaned your bedroom. That's not a motivator for them. So do not incentivize them with self-gain or self-benefit. So these are what we call the 4 tendencies. So your homework for this week is work out which one you think your children are or your child is. Are they the upholder, the obliger, the rebel, the questioner? And these little tips here right now give you an idea to how you can change the strategy. Effort in parenting is never the question. It's never a lack of effort. It's always a lack of strategy. Strategy is what I'm just talking about right now. Which one are your children and how are you having conversations with them about allowing them to meet internal expectations, meet external expectations, and how are you as a parent allowing yourself to navigate your way through that process? Because if you're dealing with a questioner and they're asking questions all the time and you're not giving them validation and justification and clarity, you're going to get frustrated, but so are they. If you're dealing with a rebel and you're not allowing them to feel like they're making the choices, they're going to get frustrated. This is about clear and concise information to allow our children to make better decisions and allow our parents to understand the process a little better. Thank you so much for joining the webinar today. This is week 3. I'll be putting this slide deck up as well, and there'll be a homework PDF to go with it. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you in week 4.